Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and today I'm going to share with you my trust rune system that I've come up with. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing things this way, and hopefully I can encourage some of you to maybe make your own systems or kind of create something based off of this to help you manage your trust runes, just so that it's not as overwhelming as I think a lot of people are making it out to be. So let's go ahead and dig in. So the goal with my system and the goal for organizing my trust runes is so that I can, in any given situation, customize a TMR to be optimally built for any unit. Now, that is different than an approach that a lot of people are taking, which would be building a TMR for a specific unit. I think there's nothing wrong with that approach, but I think that approach is going to be a lot more straining than if you actually have an organized rune system to build any TMR rune you need or TMR augmented rune you need whenever you need it. So that's kind of the goal of the system, is to have interchangeable runes so that I can interchange runes depending on, maybe I need to change my TMR, maybe I need to change the runes that are attached to that TMR. And I just wanted general guidelines so that in my mind, when I'm doing this, when I'm building my TMR runes, I have a specific goal in mind for specific runes and I know what abilities I'm looking for. So in terms of the offensive runes, that's going to be A, T, and G. I broke it down into 3 different categories. So I broke it into my penetrating offensive rune, which is going to be A for me. And this rune is always going to have spirit piercing and magic plus 20%, or potentially dex plus 20% if I needed dex. Or I have a physical offensive version, which will be defense penetration and attack plus 20%, or potentially dexterity plus 20%. So the goal with this specific rune is that if I am using a magic-based character, a TMR on a magic-based character, or I want to switch that TMR to a physical-based character, right? Maybe I'm running bells and I'm switching bells between characters. The goal is that I can just easily swap out my A rune without having to worry about my abilities being slotted on different runes, right? There's a lot of people right now that are talking about saving abilities on runes, which is something you can do. But what's going to happen if you do that is you're going to have different abilities on different rune slots, and you're going to find that your runes are less transferable in the grand scheme of things, right? You're going to end up with maybe an A, a T, and a G rune, all with maybe different penetrations on them. And maybe you're running a slash unit and the runes are going to, you're going to have an A rune with defense pen and attack 20%, and you're going to have an A rune with slash attack and slash resistance penetration, and they're not going to pair together, right? So the goal of this system is to keep my runes separate into categories so that I can change and replace the runes whenever I need them. So T is what my T runes are always going to be my weapon type based attack and piercing runes. Now, this would be, for example, pairing slash attack with slash resistance piercing. Now, I recognize that there are a lot of times where, potentially you're going to have a weapon that has slash attack on it. That's fine. We can always specialize a rune in a little bit of a different way. The goal of this system, though, is to have a generic formation for my TMR runes to enhance my TMRs in an appropriate way, right? So I will have slash attack on and a slash resist piercing on a rune. If I needed to optimize this, though, or if I needed to change this, I absolutely could. I could use one of these specialized rune abilities down below, which we're now going to talk about, which is G. And each of my sets has kind of like a versatile rune, right? This is going to be a rune that has a variety of abilities on it that I can use and that I can capitalize on. So this is going to be potentially what I'm going to change, depending on a variety of situations. So for example, critical damage, for example, accuracy, acquired AP up, counter reduction, max damage up, potentially healing power up. G is going to be that specialized universal rune for everything, basically. Now, I do think I could make a case, and this might be what I do, to replace slash attack with critical damage so that I would have critical damage up and then like slash resist piercing, right? Or critical damage up and pierce resistance piercing, so that I always have an additional modifier for a character instead of potentially stacking a slash attack and a slash resist piercing. What I'll probably do, you know, in case I have like a slash attack sword, what I'll probably do is just make variations of different T runes, right? So once I make every variation of the T rune, so I have slash, pierce, magic, missile, right? Maybe I'll do critical damage and slash resist piercing, critical damage, missile resistance piercing, right? So that I'll have a variety of choices depending on what I'm doing. And like, you could even make the point here, right? That maybe for missile resistance piercing, since all guns basically have missile resistance plus on them, well, that's not necessarily true. But since all guns have missile resistance plus for the majority of gun users, maybe I move that dex plus 20% specifically in this situation for my missile resistance piercing. That might be better, right? But at the same time, I'm still keeping the theory of the rune in place, right? I'm still getting, like, that T is still going to be my piercing rune. I'm just thinking a little bit about, okay, I'm gonna make a slight adjustment. I'm gonna make a slight tweak. And that's what this system is all about. The system is about, instead of forcing your runes into a triangle hole for every single unit, right? We're creating a versatile system of runes, and it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time to do this. We're creating a versatile system of runes in order to slide in when we need them and when we don't need them. Now, in terms of the defensive runes, I actually think the defensive runes are a little bit easier here. So the first one that I have is going to be my eye rune, and this would be a specialized defensive rune. So this is going to be a rune that, let's say I'm going into GVG, let's say I'm going into content that I know I'm going to be going up against specific compositions. GVG is a great example right now. Let's say I'm going in and I know that I'm going to be fighting Jaden's. Well, this rune is going to have missile attack resistance and light attack resistance on it. Maybe I know that I'm going to go up against Dark Slash. That'll be a dark attack resistance and slash attack resistance potentially. However, slash and magic resistance I already have universally set. So maybe it's going to be dark resistance and fire resistance in case it's going to be King Mon. You know, there's a variety of things to think about here. So this specialty defense rune will purposefully be slotted in a PvP setting for what I think I'm going to go up against. Then I have my luck and my magic resistance rune. Now there's going to be a couple different versions of this rune that I have. Universally, luck plus and magic resist I think are probably the best stats you can get, or the best passives that you can put on your rune. There may be situations where I want evasion plus or additional elemental type resistance or additional type resistance. Like maybe I just want, you know, full type resistance on maybe like a HP build that I'm building. That's possible. But primarily it will always have luck up on it. And it will probably always have some form of magic resistance, or I'll have some variation of that. And that's just going to be universal for me, right? I'm going to be able to, you know, at the end of the day, no matter what, luck plus and magic resistance are going to be on this rune. That's what it's going to be for me. Now, a lot of people do point out that, well, I use a lot of gear with magic resistance on it. I think what's going to happen over the next couple of months, and it's already happening right now, people are going to be significantly prioritizing unit attack resistance and area of effect resistance. I think that's going to be the standard going forward, particularly with trust runes when they are starting to get fully maxed out. And so I think you're going to see less, you know, potential magic resistance gear or slash resistance gear, and you're going to see more trust runes kind of occupying those generic slots, right? Why get 10% magic resistance when you could get 7% magic and slash resistance on a trust rune, and then you could also get 10 area resistance, right? Or potentially 10 single hit resistance from the most recent raid piece of gear. So I think we're going to see things change. Similarly, I put evasion down here as an optional one. I don't think we're going to be setting evasion a lot on my L rune, just because a lot of the times you're running gear that is already going to have evasion on it. And then finally, we have my P rune, and this will always be HP and slash attack resistance. You know, you're always HP. The way I look at HP is universal mitigation. You know, there is universal mitigation in the game, and it's HP percentage. And a lot of people don't think about HP as mitigation. And I think a lot of people don't look at HP and think about it as a vital stat. And the reality is HP is a very critical stat, and it is a universal mitigation. I think a lot of people don't realize that the HP set itself for the set bonus with the 5 elemental resistance is a huge mitigation compared to the defensive and spirit sets, because you can't have penetration on plus HP, right? You can't have, well, I mean, you can have elemental penetration, you can have elemental reduction as well. But those are, I would say, less common, particularly on weapons and basic attacks, than spirit and defense penetration. Usually you have to get hit by an ability to be affected by those. So I see HP plus percentage right now in the current state of the game as a universal mitigation, and I think it's really important to put them on our trust rune passives. And then of course slash attack resistance. You don't need to make a case for slash attack resistance at all on here. You could say, well, I'm running gear that has slash attack resistance on it, but why would you do that when you could just put gear with single hit resistance? You know, you're not going to have slash attack resistance if you're gearing for potentially status ailment resistance, right? What happens when we get a unit coming out from the JP side, you know, as our meta progresses, where all of a sudden, you know, we have kind of like when King Mont came and you need berserk resistance, right? What are you going to do in terms of being able to resist that? Would you put a piece of gear on with berserk resistance, or would you put slash resistance on? You would probably put a piece of gear with berserk resistance, or potentially you could create a specialized rune with berserk resistance on it, and you wouldn't even have to worry that much about it, right? So I think this is not a system that everybody is going to build. This is just to paint a picture for all of you guys on how I am approaching the trust runes, how I am categorizing them. And I think there is so many different approaches to trust runes that I think having a variety to show people is really good. Because most of the time what I'm hearing right now is I'm making this trust TMR for this unit. Umbra had a good point when we were talking about +6 weapons on the JP side. And +6 weapons came out and completely devastated some of the TMRs that JP players had been building, right? Because they had built specific runes for those TMRs. Building a system like this where runes are going to be interchangeable, you are not going to run into a situation where your TMR has become completely useless, because you are going to have a variety of different runes slottable for different situations. The system is built around customization. The system that we have created here will be built around customization. It's not built around the customization of a specific TMR. It's built for the entire TMR system, and it's going to stop you from quote unquote wasting materials in the long run. It may take longer to get going. I'm not, you know, oblivious to that. I can see, but in the long run, this is going to end up, or having a system like this is going to end up saving you significantly more time and pain than building up an individual TMR for every single unit. Anyway, everybody, I hope this helped you. I know some people may not fully understand this video, and that's okay. I just wanted to get my system out there because I think having a system like this, showing this system, is so important for people, because I think it's really easy to fall in the trap right now of engaging in TMR runes and, you know, making it, again, this TMR is for this person and only this person, right? Well, you just wasted 6 runes that you could have used for augmenting your entire TMR rune system. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.